Bière and I, we're headed to flavor, straight to my birth state of Louisiana. And we're going to share with you a recipe with a bit of Southern Louisiana zest and Zydeco. Let's get our 5-quart cast iron Dutch oven and create Gumbo Ya-Ya a la Bière. That a la Bière is Cajun for with beer. Well, actually, it's French for with beer. But ain't nobody making no rules here today, not with language and not with our gumbo. How y'all doing? It's good to be with y'all again. I hope you enjoy this recipe I've enjoyed since my growing up days back in Louisiana. We're gonna make chicken and sausage gumbo, also known as Gumbo Ya-Ya, and we're gonna make it with beer. This is a please everybody gumbo template recipe that can be created for most any you plan to feed and modified for those souls who want to live life with a bit of zest and Zydeco. I grew up in Louisiana, and like jambalaya and crawfish pie, we love our Filé gumbo. Every family in Louisiana has their go-to gumbo recipe. Gumbo is a very folklorish dish. There's a lot of history behind this recipe. And with all that history, gumbo eventually became part of the culture of Louisiana and the Cajun folks. If you want to know more about gumbo so you can be the smarter one at the dinner table, head over to the website article at beerandiron.com and learn all about gumbo. Let's get started. We're going to cook this gumbo Cajun style. And Cajun don't mean spicy. Cajun dishes are well seasoned and not necessarily spicy. There really isn't any rules to creating an authentic Cajun gumbo but this one. This recipe must include the Holy Trinity. We're going to prepare this gumbo with the Holy Trinity, and we'll be adding the Pope. And to do some pot stirring, we're going to cityfy this gumbo Creole style by adding some tomatoes. For all y'all unfamiliar with the Holy Trinity and adding the Pope, we're going to cook this recipe with onions, bell pepper, and celery. And we're going to add the Pope, which means we're going to add garlic as well. The true ratio for the Holy Trinity is 2 parts onion, 1 part green bell pepper, and 1 part celery. On top of that, we're adding tomatoes. You see, Cajun dishes and Creole dishes are similar, yet different. If you cook Cajun, you're cooking country food. Think of Cajun cooking as, look what I found in the backyard for dinner. It's rustic and creative cooking, and usually is a 3-pot meal. We're cooking 2. Gumbo and rice. I'll leave it up to you to decide on the vegetable side dish. On the other hand, Creole dishes are considered cooking city food. Think New Orleans. Creole dishes favor tomatoes. We're adding a bit of tomato to our gumbo. This recipe calls for a whole onion, 1 bell pepper, 3 stalks of celery. Folks, there really ain't no rules here. Y'alls can do what y'alls want. This is y'all's gumbo. If you want more of one and less of the other, then make it like you want. Let's talk ingredients. The ingredients for this Gumbo Ya-Ya recipe are few, but don't mean that you can't make it many. You can make it spicy, you can make it mild. Like I said, Cajun food does not always mean it has to be spicy hot food. I don't know where that came from. We're going to make the roux. We're going to use 1/4 cup of oil, butter or lard, or even bacon grease, you pick. And we're going to use 1/4 cup of white flour. If you want to learn how to create a roux, I put a link in the description for a video and the article on the website. For the gumbo, we're going to roast 1 whole chicken. We're going to debone and chop that chicken. We're going to need 1 pound of Andouille sausage, 3 cloves of garlic minced, 1 medium onion, 1 bell pepper, 2 tomatoes diced, 3 stalks of diced celery, 12 to 16 ounces of beer, some broth, 3 tablespoons of Filé, 3 tablespoons of fresh thyme, or 3 teaspoons of dry thyme, 1 teaspoon of black pepper or more, salt to taste of course, hot cooked rice to serve, and we're going to garnish it with sliced green onions. Step number 1, brine and roast a whole chicken. If you need to know how to brine and roast a whole chicken, there's links in the description that go into great detail. Step number 2, after you've roasted that chicken, let it cool a bit. Then cut the chicken meat up into larger mouth-sized portions. Step number 3, cut up the onion, mince the garlic. We're going to saute these together. In another bowl, store your prepared celery, bell pepper, and tomatoes. Slice up that andouille sausage into round medallions. If you don't have any andouille sausage, you can experiment with other sausages. Andouille is preferred, but your gumbo will be delicious with other sausages. Measure your oil and your flour for your roux. Measure the filé and the thyme and have it at the ready. What I like to do with my thyme is just use some fresh and pinch it right off the little stems right into the pot. Step number 4, heat that 5-quart cast iron Dutch oven over medium to medium-high heat. And you're going to sear or brown all those little andouille sausage medallions. Andouille is pretty fat self-sufficient. We often don't add oil to the pot when we get ready to brown our andouille sausage medallions. But if your andouille is looking sort of on the slim side, add a bit of oil or baking grease to the bottom of that Dutch oven. No worries. Once all the medallions are browned and seared on both sides, remove them from the pot and set them aside. Don't clean that pot. We're going to deglaze that pot when we saute our onions and garlic. Step number 5, the roux. I said earlier there was only one rule to this recipe, but I lied to you. I ask for your forgiveness. There's 2 rules. You really can't have a gumbo without a roux. We're going to create a roux in a separate pan and add it to the gumbo later. If you need to learn how to make a roux, I've added a link to the video in the description. Step number 6, we're going to saute the onions and garlic. We've seared and browned our andouille sausage medallions. And the pot will have all that andouille sausage fat and bits and pieces in the bottom of that pot. The onions and garlic, we'll add them together, will aid in the deglazing and pulling off that flavor from the bottom of that pot. Step number 7, toss in the bell peppers, celery, tomatoes, and your browned sausage medallions. Saute everything up just for a bit, not too long, just a bit. Turn the heat down to low or maybe medium low as we add the rest of the ingredients. If you're thinking about adding some okra to this recipe, now's the time to do it. Step number 8, add the roux. If your roux's been sitting for a bit, it may have separated. Mix it back to a nice and creamy consistency, and then add that roux to that pot of ingredients. Mix everything up real good and level things off in that pot. We want all the ingredients to be level because we're going to add liquid to the pot, and we don't want anything piled up too high. Step number 9, add the beer and broth, or one or the other, or both. I'm adding a jar of broth that I created from chicken scraps and vegetable scraps. There's a link in the video description below to teach you how to create a beer-based bone broth or stock. If you're adding just beer, add about 12 to 16 ounces of beer to the pot. Just level things up to the ingredients. If the liquid isn't up to where you want it to be, add some broth, more beer, or even water to get it up to level. As far as what kind of beer to use a mild lager or a low IBU, which stands for International Bitters Unit beer. In other words, be cautious when you're using an IPA. Basically, less bitter the better in this recipe. Avoid flavored beers and sours. Truth be known, broth from a box can work too. Step number 10, put the lid back on the pot and bring the gumbo up to a good simmer. Step 11. Once things are simmering, add your filé powder, your thyme, and any other spices you want to add, and then stir everything up real well. Step number 12. Check for the saltiness. And you're going to add some salt if you need to. There are so many things that can influence the saltiness of this gumbo. The brined chicken meat, the beer, the broth, and just the natural salt hints that exist in many ingredients. Use a spoon to gather up some of the broth, but just the broth. Sample that liquid. Is it salty to the point where you like salty to taste? Yeah? Then you're done with the ingredients. If not, then add some salt to the pot and stir in real well. Return the pot to a simmer and wait a few minutes before checking again. No less than 5 minutes. After about 5 minutes, give it a sample and see what you think. I put a link in the description below if you want to know more about salting to taste. By the way, now's a good time to put some rice on in a separate pot. Don't cook your rice with the gumbo. Cook the rice in a separate pot and add it to the gumbo later. Step number 13. After a bit of simmering, check that saltiness one more time. When adding salt, never add more than a teaspoon at a time. A little bit less at a time would be preferred. Once everything is finished cooking, all the ingredients are nice to the consistency you like them to be, then bon appetit. Enjoy your meal. Garnish as you like. If you want to add shrimp to your gumbo, it's a good idea to add at the end of the cook and let the gumbo cook the shrimp. And that shrimp will start to cool down that gumbo if you add too much, so just grab about a handful and toss it in there. Stir it in real good, make sure all the shrimp is below the liquid level. Put the lid back on the pot and let the gumbo cook the shrimp for about 10 minutes. Well, there you have it. The recipe is yours. Now you know how to cook Gumbo Ya-Ya a la Bière, or with beer. Now y'all be like, where's the jambalaya? Patience, baby, patience. Gumbo season usually lasts from around October to Mardi Gras, which is in February. And that's about it, y'all. Thanks for watching. I hope the video was worthy of a thumbs up and a subscribe, as well as a little ding on that notification dinner bell. I sure do appreciate all of y'all for watching this video. My name is Sauté, and I love to share the magic that comes out of my black pots and pans. I want to know what you think about Gumbo Ya-Ya. If you add anything to that gumbo that I haven't mentioned so far. Well, that's about it. Y'all take care. Keep on cooking in those cast iron beauties. And keep on enjoying those frosted glasses full of that fermented barley pop. We'll see y'all next time on beerandiron.com.
Is an empty glass. Oh yeah, I'm just an ordinary fool for carrying every thought of you, every thought.